Welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Welcome back, everyone. We're here today with episode 2622 of the Cabral Concept. So glad you could join me here today. We're going to be talking about today reversing inflammation through diet alone. So there's a lot of different reasons for inflammation. I want to go through those, and I want to make sure that if you are someone suffering right now from allergies or skin rashes or headaches or overall food sensitivities or low mood, low energy, low libido, imbalanced hormones, we want to talk about inflammation as part of those root causes. And so we'll talk about the root causes in just a moment as well, but we want to just make sure that you do understand that even though people say that inflammation is a part as a prerequisite or an underlying root cause of 90% of all diseases in the world, it's not that they're not right, they are right, but what I always like to say is that inflammation itself is not the true underlying root cause. So although I am on board with using certain herbs and of course diet and different modalities of recovery to reduce inflammation, I just want to let you know you should be doing that while working on finding the underlying root cause. Because inflammation is this. I just want you to understand inflammation is a part of the body's response and defense mechanism. That means it's a process in which the immune system recognizes something harmful in the body or something that needs to be repaired, and it goes about removing that harmful pathogen. We'll talk about what those are in just a moment, as well as helping with injury or recovery. So if some tissue's been damaged through an accident or a fall or a scrape or a cut, okay, the immune system also is going to help with the repair of that damaged tissue. So it sees something foreign in the body, or it's helping to heal the body in some way. That's basically what the immune system does. So now if we think about that, all right, the immune system really activates when it sees something that's not supposed to be there or there's damage. That means then there has to be a prerequisite for the immune system creating inflammation, right? So the prerequisite would be what? Well, yeah, you're maybe feeling brain fog, you're feeling low energy, you've got poor digestion, but what is the prerequisite? Let's talk about that right now. The most common causes, besides the injuries, the falls, those types of things, or the maybe even over-exercise, right? So you really broke down a lot of muscle tissue, a lot of damage to the body. You know, it can result in over-inflammation, but your body will adapt over time, and as long as it's not excess, you're totally fine. You'll be able to repair from those workouts. But others that very few people talk about are environmental-based toxins. When you inhale something like chlorine or VOCs or even higher amounts of CO2, the body creates inflammation. It starts in the lungs, but then the lungs actually move all of that into the bloodstream and inflammation is created. Also, just conventional or commercial-based cleaning products. All those cleaning products with all those scents, if it's not natural essential oils, those are all damaging to the body. They literally all create inflammation. Now, the nice thing is there's one-for-ones for all of these. So you don't have to get too worried or too overly concerned. I have a one-for-one from about 100 plus different companies at stephencabral.com/resources. It's all the brands that I've been recommending now for over 10 years. I use them with my own family in my practice. If they work for you, great. If not, that's okay too. And I'd love to hear some of your favorites as well. So chemicals from the environment, pesticides, herbicides, all those things that are sprayed on your food. That's why we want to clean our food and, if possible, purchase the clean 15 and just get away from the dirty dozen. Don't purchase them if you can't find them organic. It's just not worth it. I'll be sharing more details on those in upcoming Friday Review podcasts, so certainly stay tuned for those at stephencabral.com/podcasts. So some others that you may not know about, though, are germs and pathogens we come into contact with that will create inflammation. So a few of those would be things like herpes virus, mononucleosis, Epstein-Barr virus. But then there's more detrimental ones that might be like Lyme disease that you may have gotten in the past from a tick bite. Or it could be molds that you were exposed to a water-damaged apartment or home or office or whatever it might be, and you breathed in, inhaled some of those mold spores, and they began then to cause mycotoxins in the body and inflammatory-based damage because of that. There's also gut issues such as H. pylori, which is a bacterial infection, parasites, about a quarter to a third of the world have those, candida overgrowth from taking antibiotics or other things, as well as small intestinal bacterial overgrowth from antibiotics, birth control, and many others. So those can all cause inflammation in the gut. And then one of the biggest factors is food sensitivities and a high level of omega-6s in the diet. So I want to go over those omega-6s right now. It's really the leading cause for most people for these high levels of inflammation in their body. Now, the nice thing is, if we begin to eliminate these very quickly, we begin to then reduce and reverse inflammation. So that's how we're going to do this through diet alone. Might take you a little bit more time to do a mold protocol, a heavy metal detox, all of these things. They're all great, but let's start reducing that inflammatory load right away, right? Emptying the rain barrel. That's what I always talk about, that is how we reverse disease. We reverse disease by emptying the rain barrel, so reducing total toxic burden on the body, total body burden, and we also replenish our deficiencies. And we can do that through nutrition, some good quality supplements. It's not that difficult. It really isn't. And you don't need a lot. But let's go over some of those really inflammatory foods. So I've talked about them before, but I just want to give you a handful. Because if you can think about a handful to eliminate, it's much easier than try to eliminate everything under the sun, as they say. So the first one is this: fried foods. Honestly, just don't eat them, or very, very rarely. So it's like, can you eat French fries again? Yeah, but ideally it's just your once a week cheat meal, or you're making your own French fries at home, which is just baking them. You could just bake the French fries, don't burn them so you don't create those acrylamides, and you can make your own sweet potato fries or purple French fries, like whatever you want to do, you're able to create those as well. But deep fried foods, even if you say, well, it's deep fried in this special oil, no, it's at a very high heat. There's going to be oxidation created, very unhealthy for the body. Most likely it's a high omega-6 oil that it's fried in. All right, the next one is processed meat. You really have to be careful with these ones. It's been on the Mayo Clinics and many of the Cancer Society, all these organizations. They have no dog in the race, as I say. They just know that processed meat is dangerous. It just is. It is a dangerous food for your health. You are taking your life into your hands by eating a lot of processed food, or processed meats. So the salamis and the bacons and things like that a lot of people enjoy, I get it, I understand, they can be very tasty. Most likely, they're not coming from grass-fed animals. They're just not. They're not coming from pastured. Some are, and if it's completely grass-fed and it's completely pastured, which I'll talk about later, different story. But if you're out and you're getting your BLT or bacon wrapped in whatever, it's one of the worst foods you can eat. It's very high in inflammatory fats. So we have to be careful with that. There's also quite a bit of preservatives in most of those as well. All right, the next one is sugary beverages. So sugary beverages are, when you think about it, anything besides your coffee, your tea, your water that you're drinking, right? Your smoothies, things like that. If you are drinking energy drinks and you're drinking, even if they have the artificial sweeteners, all of those highly inflammatory. Okay, one more, I'll give you two more, would be refined sugars, and then I'll just add flours into that as well. So if it comes in a box or a bag, and you can take it, I always say this is the test, I think I talked about this like 5 or 6 years ago, maybe more on the podcast, but I always used to tell my clients this: if you can take the food out of the box or the bag, because nuts come in a bag, and so like it's not everything in a box or a bag, but if you can take the food, and it's an actual food, not a powder, but it's actually a food, and you take it like crackers or chips, and you can grind it up between your fingers and it turns to dust, it's pretty much going to be an inflammatory food in your body. There'll always be exceptions, but the crackers and the, any type of processed-based flour, for the most part, they're enriched with things like folic acid, vitamin D2. They're just not healthy for your body. So those are the main ones. There are more, but those are some of the main ones that I think most people are exposed to. You know that the sugary treats and the candy and those types of things, they're inflammatory. No doubt about it. All right. So then we say, can we ever eat those? Yes, you can. I tell you that. And I really mean that. Like, I truly mean it. Once a week, you can have a meal, not a day, but a meal where you eat pretty much whatever you'd like. And your body's going to be able to recover if it's healthy. It will. So the goal is to get your body healthy. And then once a week, you can enjoy yourself at whatever meal. When your body's really healthy, could you do this twice a week? Yes, just keep a couple days in between. So like a Thursday and a Saturday night, Saturday night, fine. Wednesday night, Saturday night, fine. But get your body healthy first, and then you can decide on what's best for you. Some people just don't want to, they want to have 2 flex meals a week of whatever they'd like. Totally fine. That's up to you. Once you get your body healthy, that's been shown even with alcohol, items like that. It's like twice a week, maximum. That's it. All right. What foods are anti-inflammatory? Let's go through these now. I want to make them really easy. Brightly colored foods are anti-inflammatory. That you can actually see the antioxidants. Like, that's the thing about brightly colored foods. Blues, oranges, yellows, what else? Purples, all of those, and the reds, those are all have their own specific type of antioxidant and phytonutrient or phytochemical that gives it that beautiful color, right? The beta carotenes for the orange, the reddish color for the astaxanthin. We've got the blues and purples with the anthocyanins. So like all of those are anti-inflammatory. So the nice thing is we've got a lot to choose from. Many fruits, many vegetables. If you're on a lower carb diet, okay, then you've got lots of vegetables to choose from. And your greens obviously count as well. Because I know that some people are more sensitive to certain fruits or vegetables or whatever it might be. Keep in mind, you can choose what works for your body. The nice thing is there are, 100, 200 of these fruits and vegetables that are readily accessible. There's of course more than that, but that are readily accessible that you'd be able to choose from that works for you. And that's why I don't tell people exactly what to eat. I tell them the parameters as to which to create their own healthy diet. All right, others are nuts and seeds. They don't work for everybody. I just want you to know that. Some people don't digest them well. If they're higher in Th2-based immune sensitivity, well, then it causes a reaction in their body. So I don't want to say it, but they are an anti-inflammatory food. But if they're a food sensitivity, well, we don't eat them, right? So people always say that like, oh, well, those things bother my digestion. Okay, let's work on your digestion. Let's fix your digestion. If it's still an issue, we just eliminate it. You don't have to eat any one food. You really don't. You need vegetables in your diet. There's no doubt about that. But it's like quantity for each individual, and then it's also the ones that work the best for them. Tomatoes are anti-inflammatory. However, they're a nightshade, and for less than 10% of the population, they bother those people. Okay, so you just don't eat any nightshades. There's not that many, right? Peppers and tomatoes and a few things like that. So I always want to focus on what we can do rather than what we can't do. All right, the next one is this: avocados and olive oil. Your 2 very best fats. I know people like to talk about lard and grass-fed butter. Not that you can't have those. They're just not as anti-inflammatory as olive oil and avocado. That's all. So again, not saying you can't have those, but if you want things that are more anti-inflammatory, well, then you're going to go with especially the oleic acid in olives. All right, last one is wild-caught fish. That is a tremendous anti-inflammatory food because it has the highest level of omega-3s. Well over the flax seeds, well over the chia seeds, well over algae, well over those, right? So it's like far more, and there's very few omega-6s. It's mainly omega-3s, and that's different than the whole, all the other foods that I talked about. So wild-caught salmon, wild-caught trout. What else do we have? We've got mackerel. We've got sardines. We've got anchovies. You can even have things like cod, others like that. They're not going to have as much, but certainly they can be beneficial as well. So then we've got more neutral foods. Kind of go slightly anti-inflammatory, slightly inflammatory. They're more neutral. And that's your grass-fed meat, your pastured eggs, your pastured poultry like chicken, turkey, etc. And then you have, those are the main ones that people are eating, right? For their meats is their chicken, their eggs, and their meat. All of those kind of fall into that category. Dairy can go either way as well. Is it coming from a grass-fed cow? I'll add that to the list too. So those are more neutral. They're not going to be powerful anti-inflammatory because even the best grass-fed meat, there was a company that tried to share with me the other day that their grass-fed meat was higher in omega-3s than omega-6s. I haven't seen it yet. I look at the lab testing from these companies. Typical grass-fed meat, like a good one, is about a 3-to-1 ratio from omega-6s to omega-3s. And that's fantastic. Like that is a good ratio. We're going to talk about that in just a moment. That's about what you should be at. But keep in mind, I have not seen one yet. Do feel free to send me the actual lab research if you are a grass-fed purveyor that has a higher level of omega-3s in the meat than omega-6s. I'd love to see that. Right now, fish. That's what's able to do it, wild caught. All right, so what do you do then? Well, if you're having your meat and legumes, I'd put in that category as well, just because some people don't digest them as well. So it's really based on digestibility. Legumes, dal, mung beans, right, which is part of dal, beans, etc., chickpeas. So all of those can be really powerful anti-inflammatory as well. So again, we're just kind of looking at it as more neutral. And then what you do is you take your protein, plant-based or your paleo-based, however you want to look at it, and then you're simply pairing it with something anti-inflammatory at your meal, like some vegetables and some olive oil. Really nice then anti-inflammatory meal. And you can then create hundreds of different recipes from choosing your particular flavor of protein and then adding some anti-inflammatory based foods to that. So very simple, very straightforward. The goal is to always balance your neutral or inflammatory foods with anti-inflammatory ones. And that is the best way to do it. Now, a lot of people then ask, how do I know what is working for my body? And that is exactly what we do, what we try to provide. And that is finding out your own inflammation score. You can go to your doctor and you can say, I want to test my interleukins, I want to test my prostaglandins, I want to test my cytokines and all sorts of different things. They'll look at you like you have 3 heads. They will say, why do you want to test those things? They won't run them because they don't necessarily know why you want to do it, or they're not going to be able to read them in a specific way. And so they typically say no. The nice thing is this, a lot of those are created by high levels of omega-6s. So what we do in our practice is we test omega-6s versus omega-3s, and you actually find out your inflammation score. The ideal score is kind of what I talked about with grass-fed meat, pastured meat. It's a 3-to-1 ratio of omega-6s to omega-3s. You need omega-6s. So I never want to say that you don't. You need omega-6s. They're very important for cells and the entire body, but you need to balance that with omega-3s. The average American has an 18-to-1 ratio. We want the ideal to be 3-to-1. So what we do is we give the ability to test your your inflammation score right from home and actually say, is my diet right now adequate to reverse inflammation, especially cardiovascularly? So what I do is I have an at-home lab that I ship to people all around the world. But keep in mind, you can run this same lab through an integrative health practitioner or your local naturopathic doctor. Your choice. I just want you to know that it is available. And so what I will do is I will link that up today at stephencabral.com/2622. That is today's podcast. Head on over to stephencabral.com/2622. It will be something special just for our community that I'm going to link up here as a thank you for our listeners. But I want you to have the ability to take back control of your health. I want you to know if your diet is anti-inflammatory or inflammatory. It's the number one thing that you can do to improve your overall health, wellness, and the basis for your total levels of inflammation, which can then lead to 90+% of all disease. So hopefully today's show was helpful. Please let me know. I'd love to hear your feedback, your comments. If the show was helpful, do feel free to share it with anyone you believe it could serve. Take care, everybody. Are you ready to heal yourself and then go on to heal others? If so, the Integrative Health Practitioner Institute can help you discover proven functional medicine protocols that blend the best of 7 different healing disciplines from around the world. I personally share with you the exact handouts and protocols I use in my private practice that enable people to get well, lose the weight, and live longer, stronger. I want to pass this information on to the next generation of health coaches, and that is exactly why I created IHP. We are the future of the health coaching industry, and the skills and knowledge you will learn will make you an in-demand certified health coach anywhere in the world. Although we have many medical professionals taking the IHP certifications, no experience is necessary, and half our members have no previous health certifications. At the Integrative Health Practitioner Institute, our motto is a health coach in every home. Our goal is that you take this knowledge and then share it with family, friends, loved ones, your community, or in a practice where you create a career you love and can be proud of. The global IHP community is filled with some of the most kind and caring people in the world, and we can't wait to welcome you into our world soon. For more information or to set up a discovery call with one of our IHP Health Coach graduates, simply head over to integrativehealthpractitioner.org.